Just cozying on the couch with a dog named Gonk. Here's your look at the brand new NECA Toys Toony Terror's Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Bring the fun of Saturday morning cartoons to your horror collection with these adorable little creeps. Pick your favorites or collect them all and make every day Toony Terror time. So what do I think of Elvira laying on the couch? So far, so good. That was terrible. Before, of course, we get a closer look at the brand new Elvira, which just happens, by the way, to be the second Elvira Toony Terror figure that we've gotten from NECA Toys. In fact, let me thank first the folks over at NECA while I'm grabbing my tape measure who did provide this sample we could have a look at here. Now, for the configuration of Elvira, I keep moving my tape measure out of the way. You really can't have the figure standing on her own just because she's always going to be in this laying position. That's the reasoning why, in fact, I'm bringing back in the tape measure. I wanted to measure at least from one end of the arm of the couch to the other to tell you at least the width of this Toony Terror, including the couch, is about 4 inches in width, or it's going to be roughly 10 inches wide. Seeing this is, after all, the second Toony Terror Elvira, it'd probably make the most sense to bring in the original one so you guys can see the differences between the two. The expression actually is different between the two figures. The original one had more of a shocked, surprised look on her face, while this version of Toony Terror's Elvira has more of a neutral expression. Speaking also of Elvira's, I did also want to bring in the retro cloth release of her so you guys can also see as well. Not that you may necessarily, you can't even see really her head. You only see, well, the top part of Elvira, probably the part that people notice the most. Now, that, again, she's going to be a lot taller of a figure for obvious reasons. It's a completely different line that NECA's doing altogether. Did also want to bring in some other Toony Terror figures. Here's what the figure looks like with the Toony Terror's Ghostface. Here's as well what she looks like with the Toony Terror's Beetlejuice. And one of my personal favorites, here's what she also as well looks like with the Toony Terror's Ultimate Harry Warden, or Miner from My Bloody Valentine. Algonquin, or Gonk if you prefer, does come include with this release of Elvira, and the only time, in fact, Gonk has come include with an Elvira figure. I do kind of wish in a way that Algonquin could have also come include with a retro cloth release of Elvira. You never know, that might be a release down the road from NECA. In the meantime, though, Gonk is painted nicely here in whites. The decorative details of adding, again, the additional black, for example, down below there as well, the pink, and as well, not to mention the big mohawk on the top of Gonk's head. A really nice figure. I say figure, though, it's really just a statue. There's no posability at all for Algonquin. You can't really do anything really with it. Algonquin doesn't really have also the space to fit on the couch. Unless you take, for example, Elvira and just kind of move her a little further forward, then you can take Gonk and fit it on top of the couch like that. It just will make, well, she will have to kind of lean more to the edge of the couch, but it does really means it does give you at least accommodated space to fit both figures if you wanted to. As much as a staction piece as Gonk is, kind of the same could be said really for Elvira too. I'm just going to take her off for a moment. Did want to show you guys the couch that she comes included with. It's, again, a really nice molded red couch this time around. You can see there's some nice gold trim there all around the back there as well. Like, it's a good sized couch. And obviously, this is one of those things where you wouldn't really be able to get one thing without the other. Yeah, in case you are curious, though, she really doesn't have the means to kind of lay on her own just because she has the end trail of her dress kind of being the preventative thing that's not really allowing her to be flat. Because, of course, this part's flat, but with this part being something that's going to hang off, she has to always be on top of something. And again, in the case here of the couch. So while there is a little bit more limitations when it comes to where you can be able to pose her, at least she does come included with the couch. And that's a really nice touch on NECA's part. Going ahead and taking the figure off for a second here. I'm just going to move the couch out of the way. And looking at Elvira's face. This is kind of more just a neutral expression. In a way, she does have a sported smile. But if you bring in the original ones, you can see the first Elvira that we had a look at not only has a different head sculpt, but also has a more surprised look on her face. One thing I'm sure you're probably asking yourselves, can you swap the heads? You can. It did involve a little bit of heating on my parts, but what you can actually do is take the head from this Elvira and remove it. I just happen to remove it with the ball joint. You can also take the head that's off this one, and if you wanted to, and you wanted to take the, again, smiling face for Elvira, it can very easily attach onto the regular Elvira body if you want to have the figure displayed that way. And because, of course, it's using the same ball joint, you can use then the surprise look if you want to have her displayed with the couch. Honestly, I'm even considering doing that because I kind of like this head sculpt being with more the standing Elvira. Even though it doesn't have the surprised look on her face, I kind of think I like this one just a little bit more for the standing Elvira. again, you can choose which one for yourself, just because, again, they're using the same ball joint. I will say at least that's a good thing on their part, that they decided to use, whether it was intentional or not, to use a ball joint, at least that was universal, that you could swap the two if you wanted to. Just because, again, like this one doesn't really belong to this body and it belongs more to this figure. Let's go ahead and just pop the head off the ball joint here. Pop it off at least from the body. We'll do the exact same thing on this figure. And let's put it back to where it belonged, putting it back on top of the neck of this one. Again, we're just going to fit it back in place. The times that I've already done this, it's now making things a little bit harder. I may even have to soften up the plastic a little bit on the neck to get it back in place. I think we finally got it there. There we go. And I can't help but to fix the problem with Elvira's other body. Let's go ahead and pop the head back in place. Again, the differences between the two heads. Yeah, I don't know. Part of me does kind of like the more surprised look on her face. There's certainly a lot more color for the eyeshadow that she has in the pink. But I got to say, like, I even like the neutral expression. I don't know. Leave it with me. I'm sure I'll decide sooner or later how I'm going to have the figures displayed. As for the rest of Elvira's body, well, this is basically all just staction. There's no posability at all at play here. You can at least rotate her head, being, of course, it attaches with the ball joint. And all that you can really then do is move the arms. This arm moves a lot more freer. It actually kind of looks like she's either shocked or she looks like she's going to faint. You can also as well move this arm. But because it's so close in quarters with her knee here, it really doesn't give you much space to really work with. Because when you're moving it, you'll notice right away that the elbow gets too close to her behind, and you really can't move it that much at all. Kind of also looks like, in a way, she's smelling her own armpits. Okay, let's just move that down. She does have the dagger. That's one thing that carried over from the original release. The outfits are also very similar as well. Pardon me for the guy that has to be the one that says this, but I can't help but notice as well that she seems to have a bigger chest on the laying version of Elvira than the one that we had, the original release that had her just standing up. Am I the only one that notices it? Do we all need to draw attention to the fact that Elvira has a bigger chest on this release than this release? Stop it, you perverts. I do like also, again, the detailing that both the figures actually had painted in nails. This could easily have been something that they just left off when it came to releasing the figure, but the fact that they would actually go in and paint each of the individual nails is a really, again, nice touch on NECA's part. I know we've already covered off the territory when it comes to reposability. Once again, it's just only really just the head and swivels and arms. I mean, really, it defeats the purpose to have any swiveling here because you're really not going to be moving much of anything. And it really is only just this one arm that you can move back and forth, and that's about it. And of course, when it comes to displaying her, making sure it's always crucial to have the figure displayed with the couch, because without that, she really isn't going to be able to be displayed without it. Or really, again, just resting on a shelf, for example. And we'll go ahead and wrap up things here with Algonquin. We'll bring Gonk back in, put the pooch on the couch as well, and bring back in the original Elvira so you can see the differences between the two. Whether, again, it's intentional or not, I do appreciate the fact that NECA Toys did use the same ball joints. So if ever given the choice that you decide later on that you want to swap the heads around, you can pop those off, swap them around if you want, and you can get the more surprised look on her face while she's laying on the couch. Now, I do believe Elvira is the only character that's gotten 2 Toony Terror releases. Now, before you say to yourself, well, there was the Michael Myers and the Ash Williams. True, that was the case, but those figures were also released with bloodied variants. They didn't necessarily change the mold at all. They just re-released the figures, essentially, with just blood splattered across their bodies. Elvira, though, has a very different body altogether than the originally stand-in Toony Terror Elvira that we got from before, not to mention that this one also benefits from having the couch and Algonquin, the dog. Now, some may still prefer to have Elvira, the standing version, and I can certainly get that. Now, this one will be, of course, because she comes included with the couch, taking up more real estate space on a shelf. But if you are a fan of Elvira, I would definitely still encourage picking this one up, even if you already have the original one. And with the benefit of still using those same similar ball joints, if ever there'd be a chance, ever be a choice popping up that you decide you want to swap the heads around, easily pop them off from the neck, and just swap the heads. I might just leave it for it is right now, just because sometimes I like to have the figures displayed as they were out of their packaging. Just it's one of those things that I always do. But I might decide down the road I might swap the heads out. At least I have the benefit of doing that because that NECA did use the ball joints being the same. There has been other companies, I know that's a strange concept, that companies should really use the same ball joints, but we have looked at other cases in the past of companies using a similar figure line and yet using completely different ball joints where you can't mix and match the heads around. Whether it was intentional, whether it was accidental, either way, I'm glad to see that NECA did use the same ball joints if you wanted to change the heads. Big thank you once again to the folks over at NECA that did provide the sample of the brand new Toony Terror's couch-laying Elvira, along with Algonquin or Gonk, the dog. What do you guys think of this? Let me know down below in the comment section. Have you already picked this up? Or Are you still sticking with only just the standing Elvira? Which of the two Elviras do you like more? Let me know down below in the comments section. Also, hey, if you guys enjoyed this video, why not hit with a like? But if you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and you want to see the rest of the Toony tears, because we are still going to be looking at the other two Toony tears that were part of this wave, those will be coming up in the upcoming reviews. The key to making sure that you're not missing out on any of that stuff is by hitting the subscribe, yes, by turning on the bell notification, sure, and if you still wanted to go back and look at the other things I've looked at from Toony tears, check out the playlist. It's popping up at the very end of this video. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.